If over the years you've gotten used to the Google Analytics landscape because Google is, the de facto digital analytics tool, there are others paid for free, but most people are using Google Analytics, especially the free version. There is a paid version for those who want a more of enterprise solution, but there's a bleak reminder that Google is going to sunset Universal Analytics, so the Google Analytics that we know now. Now, for some of us, we might decide, you know what, that's it. Let's call it a day. Let's just sit back and not worry about anything and rely on historical data. There's no point collecting any new data going forward because GA4 is too different. It's too difficult. I'm not going to even bother. But actually, I think GA4 gives you a new opportunity. It's the dawn of a new way of collecting digital analytics data, especially from Google Analytics. Okay, other digital analytics tools have provided this in the past, but Google Analytics have now decided that they want to move forward with event-based tracking. So if you're new to my channel, my name is Shorful, and on this channel we talk about everything data. So if you're a budding data analyst or a seasoned pro or someone who shares an interest in digital analytics, I suggest you subscribe to my channel. Also, ring the bell icon so you don't miss any of the helpful tips and advice that I have to offer. For those of you who are uninitiated with Google Analytics 4, in this video, I'm going to give you a sort of explanation into why Google Analytics 4 Google have made Google Analytics with Google Analytics 4 a bit more complicated, but at the same time, that complication brings a lot more power, and why I think that you shouldn't really give up, but take on the challenge, because hopefully on the other end, you'll end up with far better reports and insights. Okay, so I've divided this video into segments, into 5 chapters. What's the difference between Universal Analytics and GA4? I have actually covered this in other videos very briefly, so if you want to check out these other videos, I have covered them very briefly, but I'm going to talk about a bit more detail here. Also, I'm going to talk about then why is it complicated, because people are saying Universal Analytics and Google Analytics 4 aren't different, but that difference also means that it's slightly more complicated. So I'm going to talk about what that complication is and why people are talking about it. Then I'm going to talk about BigQuery, which is part of the complication, but part of also the solution for that complication as well. Then I'll talk about if there's a catch in moving to BigQuery. And then finally, maybe even talk about whether you should even bother migrating, okay? Because like I said, some people might decide that it's just too much and it's not worth it. But like I said, I think what Google have done will allow for much better, powerful insights and reporting. So if you'd like to pause here and grab yourself a coffee or maybe even a notebook and pen, perhaps jot down the date, because just like our data, we try to stay structured. So you might want to just make sure you take some notes. Okay, there's quite a few differences between Universal Analytics and Google Analytics 4. And I don't want to go into all of the detail because they're documented everywhere. Some of those differences actually, you just need to read about them because they're not on the outset that simple to understand for the people running the reports. They're more from a technical area in terms of how the data layer is created, how you need to use GTM. I'm just going to go through sort of some of the ones that are more relevant to people who do the reporting. So the first difference is the combined tracking between app tracking and website tracking. So Google have used a technology known as Firebase, and that's where they get their event-based tracking. And what this allows to do is that they're able to then create a unified data schema between the website and apps, so you can actually get a deduplicated account of visitors within your reporting. This means that when you are looking at your reports and you want to combine data between your apps and your website, it's much easier to do that now. So the second thing that Google have done, and I talk about often in my videos, is event-based tracking. So they've moved away from a session-based tracking to an event-based tracking. Now, people who are familiar with database technologies and transactional data, this will be very familiar to them. But if you've not used transactional databases, you won't really know what this means. But basically what it means is that historically when you've analyze data within Google, it's already been pre-configured because Google needed to optimize, how it processes that data, and how it stores that data. Because when you're running the reports, because on the free version, you're actually running it on Google servers and it's their cost. And that's why you had sampling and everything, okay? But they pre-configured things so that it was easier for you to run those reports, and much more efficient, should I say, to run those reports. Now that it's event-based, okay, it means that you can run the report however you want, okay? Which means that you can take dimensions and make calculate metrics from them. Historically, you either had a dimension or a metric. You couldn't mix the two up, but now you can. Okay, so you could take a dimension or a parameter and calculate a metric by counting that dimension. So that means when you're running reports, there's far more flexibility. And also for some people who've had websites like e-commerce websites or other transactional websites where it leads, their lead generation or something, they found Google Analytics to be quite difficult because it was session based, and so they create funnel, they create gold, but they couldn't run other reports that they needed to do, which other providers were offering. So Google obviously needed to do that, and that's why it moved to event-based tracking. So it allowed those who couldn't, especially the e-com sites, to be able to run the reports that they needed. Now, number three, when you used to log into Google Analytics, it had some pre-configured reports, and one of the reports it had was bounce rate. Now, bounce rate's gone now, okay? So they've replaced that with engagement rate. Now, that's really a good thing, actually, because whenever you had a dashboard, you wanted everything to go up. You wanted visitors to go up, visits to go up, time spent to go up. That's all good. But the one metric you wanted to go down was bounce, okay? So you had a metric that would go down, but you wanted it to be green, okay? So that was really hard because you had to do conditional formatting to show that this going down is a good thing, not a bad thing, okay? Now, Google have changed bounce rate to an engagement metric. It's not as straightforward, and I'll explain in a bit what comprises engagement. But essentially, by inversing bounce, what they've done is now saying if engagement goes up, your website's better. So therefore now, if every metric goes up, hopefully it's better. So more visitors, more page views, more time spent, more engagement is a good thing. Now, unlike bounce, which was like either a single page visit or a visit under 30 seconds, engagement actually is visits or sessions that last at least 10 seconds and have at least one conversion event. So one event or at least 2 page views. So you could be on the same page, but you've done an event, for example, submit something, or you've done clicked on a button or interacted with something. Okay, that's an event conversion. So essentially, you've got to stay for at least 10 seconds and do an event conversion. Okay, and that means that you're engaged, or you need to have visited 2 pages, which means that you are an engaged user. Okay, so even though the metric is slightly calculated, slightly different from a bounce rate, it makes more sense. Okay, and Google's obviously listened to feedback and realized for most people that this is the way to go forward. So number 4 is predictive metrics. So what Google have done is leverage their machine learning capabilities and applied it to Google Analytics. Now, one of those metrics that they've applied is purchase probability, where they look at a user who's been active, I believe, in the last 28 days, and they're able to predict whether they would do a conversion event. Okay, so they've converted into something in the next 7 days. Okay, so they've got this purchase probability metric, which means that they can now score people based on what they do on the website and if they're likely to convert in the next 7 days. The other predictive metric they've created is churn probability, which is basically people who've been on your website and won't come back in the next 7 days. So if you're doing any on-site personalization or on-site targeting specifically, you might want to target those people to make sure they return within 7 days. Otherwise, you're likely to lose them. The last predictive measure is predictive revenue. So those websites where you've tracked your revenue, whether it's conversion from selling something or ads, then Google Analytics create predictive revenue. So they're able to calculate from users how much revenue they'll generate in the next 28 days. So as you use GA4, you'll notice some other differences. So for example, they're using AI to calculate unique users where people have blocked cookies. So you might find that GA4 reports slightly higher number of visitors than Universal Analytics did, because it's now trying to, guess a user when they block their cookie using AI. The other thing you might notice is they've applied very strict privacy controls. So when you drill down, you might find that the data, you might see at a month level, you've had 100 conversions, but if you drill down to particular days, it may come at 0, because if the number gets too small, Google masks that data so that it can maintain privacy for individuals. So with all this new stuff that Google's providing, okay, which is a much better Google Analytics solution than previously, why is it complicated? Why are people saying it's complicated? Now, whenever you move between any analytics provider, then technically in this GA, you are actually changing to a new tracking technology. There's always going to be discrepancies. I mean, anyone who's gone through a migration of digital tracking will tell you that you never can match the numbers up. So there's going to be a difference. And then you've got these differences that Google have introduced in terms of using AI to track cookie users, using event-based tracking, using privacy controls. You're going to have some discrepancies between your numbers that your Universal Analytics delivered and your Google Analytics GA4 will deliver. But that's not the main concern. The main concern is is the people at the end who are using the data, what they'll find is that when they log into GA4 for the first time, the reporting interface is much leaner. Okay, there are far fewer reports than there used to be in Google Analytics 3 or Universal Analytics. Okay, and some of the reports you'll find that even if you go to the custom report builder, you can't actually recreate. They're not possible to recreate. And even if you connect Google Analytics to Looker Studio, you find that you can't actually even run reports that you used to run before, mainly because the data, the format that you need the data in needs to be either transformed or manipulated, which can't actually be done from connecting GA4 to Looker Studio. You might be able to do some of it by pulling the data into Google Sheets, but not everything can be done within Google Sheets and Looker Studio. Now, Google haven't done this deliberately to stop you running the reports that you used to run. The reason they've done this is because they've introduced a solution where you can connect your GA4 to BigQuery. Now, historically, the connection between GA4 and BigQuery, Google Analytics and BigQuery, you could do. It was paid for if you use the free version, but the GA360 allowed for a free connection. GA4 allows for free connection even on the free version of GA4. So you can now connect your Google Analytics to BigQuery and export all the data from GA4 into BigQuery. Once it's in BigQuery, you can do the transformations and manipulations that you need to do in order to create the reports that you want to run. And you just literally plug in Looker Studio and you're then able to get what you had historically. The other thing is obviously when you do connect to BigQuery, you can store as much data as you want. So by default, I believe that GA4 will store 2 months of data. You can extend that to 14 months. It's part of their privacy thing, so they've not assumed you wanted to collect 14 months. So they've limited that to 2 months. You need to log in and extend that to 14 months. But if you're exporting data into BigQuery, it means you can then collect as much data as you want and go back as far as you want. So you can collect beyond the 14 months, okay? You can have years of data in the future. Now, some of you may be asking, what is BigQuery that I'm talking about, okay? But, and whereas others may have heard of it, but you've not paid much heed to it because it's not been something that you've had to deal with when you're working with Google Analytics. It's sort of something that Google does in terms of cloud and cloud databases. And whenever people talked about BigQuery and Google Cloud, you just assumed it was the world of data engineers and data scientists where they could do great stuff with the data that was collected for GA4. But now it is something that digital analysts or digital marketers will need to worry about. You do need to worry about what BigQuery is, because to get some of the reports that you had historically, the only way to do it is to connect to GA4, connect GA4 to BigQuery and run those reports in BigQuery, like I said, and then you can potentially connect Looker Studio to get the reports that you want. Now, I make the sounding of this quite simple. It is not simple. There is some complication in connecting GA4 to BigQuery. You've got to set up BigQuery. You've also got to set up a Google Cloud platform. You've got to set up a billing account. There are a bit of complexities, but just know that you need to connect BigQuery, GA4 to BigQuery in order to get the reports that you wanted to get, that you had historically. Now, you might think that connecting GA4 to BigQuery is really daunting, okay? But I can tell you that if you do connect it, then you find that you can run much more flexible reports and much more powerful reports that give you really good insights, okay? My team have done this for a lot of our clients, okay? And well, what we're finding is that the clients now can run a lot of analysis that they weren't able to run before, even in the old GA. So not only can they replicate what they had, they can also do far more. So you're probably wondering, okay, if Google's offering a free connector between GA4 and BigQuery, there's got to be a catch, right? So what is the catch? Well, technically there is no catch. So when you do connect GA4 to BigQuery, and even though you have to put your credit card in, there is a quota. So Google, I believe, allows you to store about 1 terabytes of data or something like that for free. And they allow a certain amount of processing for free as well. But obviously, depending on your usage of how many reports you run, how much data you're going to store, how big you are in terms of your website, and how much data you're going to store, then what you might find is that there is going to be a cost, okay? BigQuery and Google Cloud Platform do not come for free. You're going to have to pay something for storing and processing that information. Now, if you've never had to pay for Google, this is like a shock, right? Because you've had a free version of Google, you were able to do everything you wanted within Google Analytics, and now you're going to be having to pay for something. So it may be that you are worried about how much is this going to cost. Is this going to cost me hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars? So it's quite worrying. So to address that concern about how much it's going to cost, Google does have a cost calculator, just like all the other cloud platforms like AWS and Microsoft Azure. If you go to the cost calculator, actually, it looks quite daunting, and there's like loads of things that you have to do. But just get someone to help you who's knows about cloud technologies and cloud computing, and they're going to tell you what to do. You don't need to choose the high specs. Now, unless you are doing unless you've got a really big website where you've got tens of millions of visitors and you need to run really complex reports, you probably don't need the high-end cloud computing instances. You can go for maybe the entry level if you're willing to wait, a few seconds, a minute for your reports to run, and you don't need them instantaneously. But I appreciate that for some of you, this is still sort of nerve-wracking, right? You've got a challenge of going, to your stakeholders. If you're, a digital analyst in a company, or if you're a digital and marketing agency, you've now got to go to your clients and you've got to say to them, well, actually, Google Analytics used to be free. Well, there's a few complications. We can't run those reports that you had before. The numbers are going to be slightly different. We can't get some conversion metrics within certain granularity. So we're going to have to move to BigQuery, or we're going to have to use BigQuery, because that's one thing you're going to have to raise, is that they're going to have to export their data into BigQuery. Then you're going to have to raise the prospect of a cost of a budget that historically, the only cost would have been your time in terms of analyzing the reports. So if you're in-house, it's just your cost for your salary. If you're a digital agency, you might have charged for a retainer for a digital analyst. Now you're asking for a budget to run a cloud instance with BigQuery, with a database in there. Okay, so there are things to consider, but as I mentioned, once you do that, you find that you can run much more powerful reports and you can get really, really good insights. So some of you might be thinking, well, is it even worth migrating to GA4? You might decide that you want to choose another technology which used to do what GA used to do, and maybe you just pay them to do it because it's all out of the box. You don't have to set anything up. So you might decide it's not worth migrating to GA4. I won't bother. Now, the thing I would say to you is that if you want to stick with GA and you're willing to go through the pain of moving, or the learning pain, really, it's not really a pain because all the connectors and stuff with it. It's more of a learning pain. Or you just get an expert in to do it for you. Get one of these companies that do this. Just like I said, so my guys do this for clients. My company does this for clients. So just get a company in who can do this for you. Okay. But once you've got there, what you have is the beginning of a data warehouse. Now, if you have other ad tech or martech technology, so if you've got Google paid ads, if you've got an ad server, you now have the foundations to build out a reporting data warehouse, a cloud-based reporting data warehouse. So you'll be able to ingest all the data into BigQuery. There are a lot of connectors in the marketplace, some free, some paid for. Okay, now you might decide, well, could be a good opportunity to centralize everything. So if you are running things on different interfaces and collating them in Excel and building dashboards from data from different disparate sources in Tableau or Looker Studio or even Power BI, you might decide this is a good opportunity to centralize all of that data within BigQuery and then run reports within that. And you find that's some far more robust solution than doing it manually and extracting data from different systems. And once you have that data into BigQuery, you might be able to do things like score customers in terms of segments. You might be able to use the predictive scores in terms of predictive metrics, that Google Analytics are now offering in terms of purchase propensity or churn propensity. And you might be able to, you can then connect your CRM system to them. So when they're scored for their propensity to churn or propensity to purchase, you can send them messages via your CRM system. So you can see that even though it looks like quite a daunting task, you may not be used to it. If you can get over that learning curve, whether you learn it yourself or you bring in experts like my company to build those solutions for you, you can then find that you can do much more, okay? And therefore, as a function, as something that you can offer your stakeholders, or if you're an agency, you can offer your clients, is something far more powerful. And also you can execute on that data because it's now in a central repository, a central cloud data warehouse. Google Cloud also has some very powerful machine learning applications. So the other thing you can do is a bit of data science work. You might want to do some exploratory work in terms of building your own segments. You might want to build your own predictive models. You might want to mine the data for certain certain insights. Okay, now having it in Google, in BigQuery, and utilizing the machine learning applications in Google Cloud will allow you to do that. Now, again, there may be a learning curve if you're only used to running reports in Google Analytics, but it should be an opportunity where you can now take the Google Analytics data and build something better and more powerful. Well, that's about it for this video. If you'd like me to cover anything specific, please leave a comment in the comment sections below. I always check the comments and I'll either respond there or I might even make a video about it. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. And of course, please do subscribe to my channel and ring the bell icon so you don't miss any future videos. Thank you.